the 2010. So there's a discrepancy there.
We first of all we apologize that we're starting way behind schedule, but all the same, like the saying goes, it's better late than never. Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political, and general interest show, Korero. Of course, I'm your regular host, Nkamiang John the Beloved, also known as the Controversial. Now, it all started after an Abuja-based lawyer, Maxwell Okpara, filed a suit in the Federal High Court challenging the Inspector General of Police's continued stay in office. In response, the police also brought charges against former presidential candidate and activist Omoyele Sowore, who had called EGBETOKUN'S position illegal. Now, last week, the nation's capital had protesters stage a protest in front of the Federal High Court here in Abuja. And spotted among the protesters was Omoyele Sowore singing and holding placards with the inscription, EGBETOKUN must go. Now, the IGP's continued tenure in office has been a subject of contention for some time now, with the Police Service Commission making moves to stop the tenure elongation and retirement of older officers from service. Well, today on the show, we will examine Kayode EGBETOKUN'S stay as Inspector General of Police, IGP, and the legality behind his tenure extension, especially after the Attorney General of the Federation, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, confirmed the legality of his continued stay, or gave back into the legality of his continued stay in office. But as always, before we get into the core of the conversation or the meat of the matter, let me remind you, as I always do, that the show is live and interactive on all our social media platforms, and all you need to do is follow and like Rapid TV on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, also known as IG, and we are also on LinkedIn and on TikTok. Remember, our handle is @official Rapid TV, @official Rapid TV. And of course, if you choose to use WhatsApp, you can be part of the conversation simply by sending your views and comments and reactions via our WhatsApp portal with the number 0916 771 6035. 0916 771 6035. Now, Nigeria's Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, last Thursday defended the continuous stay of the Inspector General of Police, Kayode EGBETOKUN, in office, saying it is legal and lawful. Now, he said EGBETOKUN'S appointment, which took effect from October 31st, 2023, would have come to an end on his attainment of 60 years of age, which was on September 4th, was on September 4th, 2024. However, before his retirement age, the Police Act was amended to allow the occupant of the office to remain and complete the original 4 years term granted under Section 6, subsection 6 of the Act. And even though he attained the age of 60, this has therefore statutorily extended the tenure of office of EGBETOKUN to and including 31st day of October 2027 to complete the 4-year tenure granted to him. Now, the AGF statement seems to dispel some part of the confusion and assured the public that the IGP's position is in full compliance with the law. President Bola Tinubu appointed EGBETOKUN as Inspector General of Police in June of 2023. He replaced Usman Baba. The National Police Council in October 2023 confirmed EGBETOKUN as the substantive police chief. Section 7 of the Police Act 2020 stipulates that anyone appointed as Inspector General of Police, IGP, shall stay in office for 4 years. EGBETOKUN, who was born on September 4th, 1964, was expected to retire last September when he clocked 60. Also, Section 18, subsection 8 of the Police Act 2020 refers or reference the Civil Service Rule on retirement. It partly reads that, and I quote, every police officer shall, on recruitment or appointment, serve in the Nigerian police force for a period of 35 years or until he attains the age of 60 years, whichever is earlier. In July 2024, however, the National Assembly passed a bill allowing EGBETOKUN to stay in office until the end of the term stipulated in his appointment letter. Now, despite calls for the IGP's retirement, the federal government on last Thursday, backed EGBETOKUN'S continued stay. It argued that his stay is legal. But legal luminaries have argued that only an alteration of the 1999 Nigerian Constitution can effect the appointment and tenure extension of the Inspector General of Police. The Honorable Attorney General of the Federation got it wrong about tenure extension of the IGP. That is the position of some legal luminaries. Now, according to them, contrary to the foregoing assertions by the AGF, they hold the view that it is only through an alteration of the sections 214, 215, and 216 of the 1999 Nigerian Constitution as amended that the tenure of the IGP can be extended, stating that the logic behind this argument is that the office of the IGP is a direct creation and established by the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. Therefore, it is only through an alteration, they said, the Constitution can that changes and can be made to the tenure of the office of the IGP. Now, for the avoidance of any doubt, Section 215 of the 1999 Nigerian Constitution is reproduced here under, and I quote, appointment of Inspector General and control of Nigeria Police Force. 1. There shall be an Inspector General of Police who, subject to Section 216 subsection 2 of this Constitution, shall be appointed by the President on the advice of the Nigerian Police Council from among 7 members of the Nigerian Police Force. In support of this assertion that an alteration of the Constitution is the only method to achieve tenure extension of the IGP, they urge the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation to consider the 5th Alteration Act, number 37 of June 8, 2023, wherein the 1999 Nigerian Constitution was altered to provide a uniform age of retirement and pension for all judicial officers of the courts that were created by the 1999 Nigerian Constitution. The reason is because the officers or offices of the judges of all the aforesaid judicial officers were created by the said 1999 Nigerian Constitution as amended. Therefore, changes to their age of retirement must equally be effected through an alteration of the same 1999 Nigerian Constitution. Joining me this morning to discuss all of these positions is a lawyer and author, my very good friend and brother, Ahmed Momo. Ahmed, thank you for being able, I know it was a very busy weekend for you, but you still were able to make out time to be here this morning.
I'm glad to be here, as usual.
Well, Ahmed, let's get down to it. How do you react to this very position? The AGF says EGBETOKUN'S stay in office is legal, but members of the bar are like, no, it's not enough to have an amendment of the Police Act, but it is only an alteration of the 1999 Constitution that can truly legitimize EGBETOKUN'S stay in office?
I don't agree with that position.
Okay.
So I think maybe I should have a short or long answer. And my short answer would be that the buck stops with the president.
Okay.
You know, so
even when it has to do with the Constitution?
Not necessarily. I'm saying the executive arms of government is with the president. You know, we have three tiers.
Yes.
You know, we have three arms. We have the president embodies the entirety of the federal executive power. That's what the president is. It represents that. And the buck stops there. Now, I'm explaining this. Let's leave law first, do you get? Because the laws are there to help, you know, us govern better. The laws are there to just make life easier for us. So when I'm saying the buck stops there, if you are the one I will blame, I told you, make sure nobody comes to steal meat in the pot. First son. So Mr. First son, you are the one I will blame and deal with. And
if
spoil your name.
Yes. If that law is flouted.
Yes. If somebody comes to steal. First son says, I can't be everywhere. I will need to appoint somebody to mount this particular door. It's fair, therefore, since it's the first son that will suffer, it is therefore fair that that first son should be given realistic right to appoint whom he trusts. After all, now in name is this person. So we may not like the face of the IGP or what it is, but we need to understand that any idea or any act that intends to fetter the presidential power to appoint the IGP, on the face of it, is obnoxious. I can't support that. And I agree that, you know, and I think to a large extent, that's what the Police Act 2020 did, by limiting the president's power to appoint a 4 years tenured IGP. I don't think that's the case. The president can really look, and it is further limiting. So I'm even thinking an overhaul of that act necessarily have to be examined. Why must it be an AIG? What if I find a commissioner of police, a deputy commissioner of police, that I said this is the man that can transform this almost moribund or obviously collapsing organization? The police is not, no Nigerian has ever scored the police 5% or and above. Everybody has a complaint about the police. And the truth of the matter is that if the Nigerian police is working well, the nation will just somehow start working well. Police is reflective of, you know, it's just the state of the police is really the state of the nation. And we need to do better. And I think the presidential power has been fettered. And I agree, it's coming from our history of maybe having policemen who were just like, just do it 4 years. Sorry about that. After 4 years, we put another person. So there was this almost lackluster approach. But what if the president has found somebody who is just a commissioner of police, maybe in Borno State, maybe in Edo State, and is bringing a person up there and saying, no, you are the one that I need you to man the police and overhaul the system. As it is right now, you can't. Because it has to be at least an inspector general of police. These are some of the issues. What if Mr. President finds somebody doing a fantastic job and is there? So I think the Police Act, what I'm trying to say, is in conflict
with the Constitution.
Section you just read, Section 215. I didn't see any
cohesiveness
between. I didn't see any rule in Section 215 that you read out now. It just gave the president power to appoint the IGP. And in Nigeria, any law or policy or rule that is in conflict with the Constitution is null and void to the extent of this inconsistency.
So this now suggests that it is not the Constitution that is the issue.
Not at all.
It is the Police Act.
It is. And whilst I understand that the amended 2020 was meant to correct, seeming like, you know, the 1943 Act was old, it was obsolete. I understand, you know, a lot had to be done. I get it. But the power of the president to appoint his IGP should not be fettered. Back to the analogy of the first son and the meat in the kitchen. He's the one to blame. So he ought to be given the right to appoint anybody. Let's start from that premise. Because at the end of the day, I want to both-facedly say, Mr. President, you have failed. Security is bad. Mr. President, the way we screamed about President Muhammadu Buhari was a colossal failure when it had to do with security in this country. Till date, he cannot come and raise his face and we will laugh at. We have a record. Under you, people couldn't travel to their homelands. Under you, the Nigerians were scared. Security was terrible. We knew nobody's. How many people have called the IG? His Buhari's regime was terrible. He will wear it in his chest like a badge for the rest of his life. And same should be with President Ahmed Tinubu. And in fairness, I think the main issue should be what is the current IGB doing, acting left, right, and center, and not really play around it. But even if we look at the laws, finally, it has been amended. The act has been amended.
So, your argument, or what we can borrow from your argument, is that rather than the AGF come out to not, or instead of just defending the elongation of the tenure of Kayode EGBETOKUN, he should have also triggered a debate on the Police Act.
Absolutely.
Suggesting that there is a conflict between the Police Act and the Nigerian Constitution.
Yes, because it is the Police Act as it is now is featuring the power, the express power of the president to secure this nation. He's the chief security officer. EGBETOKUN is quote unquote a PA as it is of Mr. President, and it should be seen like that. He's at the behest of the president, he's acting for the president. Because I didn't vote for him, he doesn't owe me anything. But or at least Nigerians voted for President Tinubu.
Good.
If you voted
so
for
President Tinubu is responsible to Nigerians.
For every electorate, those that voted and those that decided not to vote. He's the one in charge of it. Therefore, he ought to be the one to say, I am in charge of your security. This is who I think. And you're not going to limit the poll if you really want to get it right. So I think that the entire Police Act ought to be exhaustively examined. And any power, any means, directly or indirectly, to fetter the police, the presidential power to appoint an IGP ought to be completely disregarded in the courts, because it's in conflict with the Constitution and it's in conflict with the spirit. Not just the letter, the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law says that Mr. President is to secure this nation. He can't do it himself. He's appointing people who he thinks can. And I want to go a step further to say, what if he says, I don't see anybody in the IGP right now that can do this job? I may go a step further. I don't see anybody here. I want to get the IGP out. The same way I know there was legal issue when President Muhammadu Buhari did that with the customs. But what if? Because we need to have this debate on the table, because we all realize that these systems are not working. The Nigerian police is not, in case you have been living under or playing the ostrich, burying your head, it's really not working the way we want it to work. It's not. They're flash here and there, things are getting better. And I don't think things are getting better, relatively speaking, when we come to security under EGBETOKUN. And that should be the conversation. If you ask me, I think things are, I've not had the daily cases of kidnapping on the Cardinal Road like we used to hear them anymore. So these are the issues we should be having. We should really put President Tinubu to the task to say, are you securing us? And leave these legal issues alone. Let lawyers just chill sometimes, right? Let's get it done. Because Constitution is the main law in this country.
But you and I know that when under a democratic dispensation, the argument is always that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man.
Absolutely.
And so it's the responsibility of holding government at all levels responsible for actions and inactions and policy somersaults is through the instrument of the law. So in this case, is it that members of the bar did not critically look at the technicalities involved or the intricacies with regards to the Police Act and the 1999 Constitution? Because as far as, if you listen to a Shore who also has some understanding of the law, he will tell you, look, it's clear, this man should not be in office. You know, he has reached the age of 60, which naturally says he should be on retirement. You understand? And because of the context in which we do things in Nigeria, even the amendment of the Police Act was seen to be, it was amended to suit the government in power.
Yeah, let me start from that. I agree. It doesn't even appear as if it's a void. We can see broad daylight. Do you understand? I think it was amended in July or June 2023. 4, I think.
In 2024, yeah.
You know, shortly before the
man's tenure would
expire. And, you know, the idea of laws, there's even a judgment to that effect. It should be AG, Abia AG Federation. It's clearly stated that laws ought to be enacted to be general and impersonal. You can't make a law to directly punish or benefit anybody. But if you critically look at what happened, that amendment, that law seemed to have been passed strictly to benefit somebody. That doesn't, you know, pass the sniff test. You know,
but why didn't we challenge it at that time?
Yeah. So that's the point. So it's somehow odious to say, oh, this law was made with bold-facedly to benefit this particular gentleman. It wasn't done afterwards. It wasn't done at the beginning. It was done just when his office was, his antenna was, you know, about to pass off. And that's one of the issues that doesn't, these are the issues in Nigeria. We don't need that kind of a system. The National Assembly ought to be thoroughly independent. Just the face of it, the odious nature of it ought to have deterred them from, you know, delving into it. But I agree with you. That's not how laws should be made. Laws should never be made to single out anybody for benefit or for punishment. But that law seemed to have particularly benefited Mr. President. It was an executive bill. It came from the Aso Rock. They needed this to be done, obviously. But then again, we're still driving back to the same issue, like I was saying. If the president looks and says, this man is on a project, he's getting it right here, you guys are about to fetch now, so probably that was the way out of the quagmire. I would have thought generally an overhaul of the act to question the legality of the Police Act vis-a-vis the presidential power to appoint an IGP ought to be thoroughly, you know, examined.
Now that makes me wonder, as of the time the executive order got to the National Assembly for them to amend the Police Act.
Yes.
Shouldn't the National Assembly naturally seek the opinions, the expert opinions of legal luminaries to thoroughly look at, okay, this has come from the table of Mr. President.
Yes.
He wants us to amend the Police Act. We need to x-ray the Police Act vis-a-vis the 1999 Constitution, because I would assume, as lawmakers, their first port of call would be the Constitution.
Yes,
what does the Constitution say in regards to this? But we just saw them.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was hastily passed, and it's always suspicious because we know how long the National Assembly naturally takes to pass the act, except there's extra interest. And again, I would say not just liaison, because they all have legal advisors. There's no, you know, member in the House that would not have a legal advisor paid for by, you know, the constituents, and rightly so. Yeah, but I also think that they should have at least gone back, because I like laws where you're supposed to liaise. I know I voted for you, but you need to hear from me to come and decide. Obviously, many of these laws, they don't need to go back to their constituency to ask, but this is quite a technical matter. I really don't have a problem with that amendment, aside the fact that it doesn't pass the sniff test. That's the problem. Again, in fairness, that amendment, which is 18.8a, I think now, which now says basically that anybody appointed would now have to leave out the tenure in his appointment letter.
Yeah.
That was meant to correct the defect in 7.6, subsection 6. But there is, even from the amendment, you will see a clear disjointment. It's not together. It's obviously an afterthought, clearly speaking. It's obvious, but it's still an amendment nonetheless. It's still validly a law in Nigeria. It's upon that basis that it is legal. And ultimately, it's not my opinion or yours, it's the court that will determine whether or not this law as it is legal. But I think the strongest argument that the AGF ought to bring, the strongest argument that the president ought to bring, is that any fettering of the presidential power and right to appoint an IGP ought to be seen as inconsistent with Section 215, and therefore, on that basis alone, ought to be discarded as null and void to the extent of its inconsistency. And I think that's the position. We should never forget that the chief law officer is the president. And whosoever he decides that this is, because this is how a democracy should work. Right now, you may not like the party or the people in government, and you will say, I don't like this, I don't. What of when you like that person? And precedent has been set. So it's very important to examine the legal framework.
Now, should it be about whether you like or not like, or shouldn't it be about results? Shouldn't it be about effectiveness? Shouldn't it be about delivering on the dividends of democracy?
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm coming back. That's why I'm quite sympathetic to the current IGP. I think by far, I have not seen the numbers. But they tell blind man say rain, they fall. We know. And we've been in the city for a while. I think this is one of the safest stretch we have had in the north, particularly in the northwest. People ply that road now. There was a time almost on a daily basis, people were kidnapped on Cardinal Road. That's not happening every day. There was a time traveling to the most sacred, place on earth, my hometown. Was a chore. You would think about it 3-4 times before I go to Auchi. But now the roads are relatively safe. I think Mr. President and the IGP is definitely doing something right. And this should be consolidated. The complaint I want to hear from members of the public is how to get this right and areas that they are failing. Let's examine them. Let's put pressure on. Let's leave the academic debates. There is an amendment, and if there's an issue, it goes to the court. Leave the sensationalization. You are taking it from the real topics that should happen. Are Nigerians safer now? If it has improved, what was done to improve? I've still not seen a holistic numbers of the people who have been kidnapped since 2015 to date. The last number we had was running in billions. It's scary. Okay, what about the last 4 years of Muhammadu Buhari vis-a-vis the 2 years we've had of President Tinubu? We need to see these numbers. We also need a platform. Mr. IGP ought to be briefing Nigeria. This country has so many hotbeds, and there's some silence coming out from there. We need constant briefing. In person, please talk to us. We need to know what you're doing. I need member of the public to just stop this academic argument. Let's focus on the meat of the matter. Lives are very important. The fact that I'm saying is relatively safer is not saying Nigeria is now safe.
Now safe.
It's not.
But at least there is some progress.
Yes.
It is better than it was before.
I think so. I might be wrong, but I think so. And I think most Nigerians think so. I dare throw a poll out there. Right now, there's a little bit of, things are working out a little bit fair. And I think we should build on that and see how we can get better. We're coming from a nightmare. We shouldn't forget President Muhammadu Buhari in a hurry. So let's just say you put in somebody who supposedly is okay with the position of the law, but in reality, lives are being lost on a daily basis. Which would you clap for? Which will your conscience be happy with? I think the current IGP is doing a decent job. I won't say a fantastic job. He's doing a decent job because of the track record that we've had in the relative past. And I think he should do more. And all this distraction, he should focus on getting things done properly. And I think we'll get there.
Well, last Friday, spokesman for the Police Service Commission, EGBETOKUN'S, said in a statement that the PSC, after its first extraordinary meeting of the 6th Management Board, approved the immediate retirement of senior police officers who have spent more than 35 years in service and those above 60 years of age. Now, the Police Service Commission said it reversed a 2017 decision that approved that force entrants should have their date of appointment in the force against the date of their enlistment. Ikechukwu said the decision had been communicated to the Inspector General of Police, EGBETOKUN'S, for implementation. The move comes amid calls for the retirement of the IGP owing to his tenure elongation. Now, looking at what the Police Service Commission is doing, vis-a-vis the Police Act, which you talked about, are they trying to create some balance so that we do not have a reoccurrence of this scenario in the future?
Well, I think the law there, they have to follow the law. The IGP, I think, is an exemption to that general rule. The Police Act probably is okay, is fine. I just don't like the part that FET has the presidential power to appoint, because I believe more than just the age, I believe the rank that's my bone of contention.
Yeah, we've seen it happen in the military,
Yes.
where a junior officer is appointed to a higher office,
Yes.
despite the fact that there are several senior officers ahead.
Yes.
But some schools of thought have argued that the structure of the police, particularly the Nigerian police force, doesn't necessarily allow for that kind of dynamics to play out.
Yeah, well, even if it allows, the act is clear. You know, you have to be at least an IGP, AGP, Assistant Inspector of Police, AIG rather.
Which suggests that you must already be almost at the end of your service for you to be an IGP.
For you to be an IGP. And somehow, I do not think that position will allow for dynamism. You know, I don't think so. I think there may be a very brilliant Deputy Commissioner of Police somewhere. You can just be your IG. And I understand, you know, with salutation and why trying to, are you going to say that his seniors are going to start saluting him and all that?
Exactly.
You know,
because I know that this conversation has been held in some quarters, and the question is, okay, it's not even about whether his seniors will salute him. It is, okay, when his tenure is done, does he now go back to being a deputy commissioner, of police,
yes.
you know, after serving as IGP for maybe 4 years?
Yes. And would you want to retire if it's just 34, 35, thereabout? But well, I think we should look at this holistically. I think it should be an office different from a rank. You know, it should be strictly an office where you come in and you do your job, and at the end of the job, you can decide to leave or decide to go, and of course, there should be conditions, you know, attached to it. I think so. I think it's fine that way. It really should be an office, and who knows? We should even look strongly whether it should be an elective office. You know, have people from the force and Nigerians and everybody vote. Let's just do something with the police as it is. It's not working. So we shouldn't close ideas. We shouldn't close the conversation with the Nigerian police force. Do you understand? Nothing stops an amendment that gives the IGP to be voted for, at least people in the police rank.
Yeah, I know that in places like the United States, in some states of the US, they actually vote their police chief.
Yes.
They decide who their police chief
would be, But and also the Attorney General, that's a very big office people run for, because these are very important offices, and they need to be the idea of vote is accountability, don't forget. Because if you do not, if I don't vote for you, if you don't win in a democratic process, you're not accountable to me. You know, you're accountable to who appointed you.
Exactly.
You understand? And so that's how it works. Because as it is accountable to the president. And that's why we are like, the president will have the best person. He's not the one that tomorrow you say, I would have, but this is what you gave me. I don't want to give you anything. I want you to give us the best you can get. You look into the system and get the best and put it out there, and so that you don't have any excuse why you failed. I think that's why the spirit of the law ought to be understood first before we look at the later. As the spirit, what's the intention behind this legislation? It cannot be to tie the hands of the president. No, it ought at all times to allow the president do the best he can do to secure Nigerians. And I don't think the Police Act, back to it again, as it is, would give the president the best he can to secure Nigerians. No, I don't think. I think someone ties his hand. But looking at what the Police Service Commission is doing, I would think strongly that every other person, because it's whichever comes first. Have you done are you 60 years of age, automatically you leave? Have you done 35 years, automatically, and whichever comes first? So if you've done 35 years and you're not up to 60, please leave. That's what the act says for you. And it's reasonable. We don't want very old people running the police. We don't want people who have stale ideas. We want fresh hands at all times. Of course, we need the experience, which is why the Service Commission is there, of course, still in an advisory role. But, you know, the police has to be a smart organization. It's not for, you know, a certain age limit anymore. But for the IG, largely, this is an internal office thing. You're not, you know, we don't expect you to start running around. We expect you to just manage, lead, and deal. So that you can obviously see the exception with that as against
the argument over the years with the subject of, because you said something very profound, we don't want old with moribund ideas. Policing is dynamic, it's consistently changing because society itself is consistently evolving. But the argument over the years has always been that these are men who have gained experience while in service. And so what we've seen happen, especially with the Police Service Commission, you see former IGPs being brought back, being involved in formulating policies that direct the performance of the police force.
Absolutely. And I think that's great. And I think that's how it should be. You know, the Service Commission ought to be the brain bank, you know, the brain box of the MPF, right? And the MPF ought to, you know, look into themselves, just execute, be smarter, do things faster, more coherent and all. And this is how we should look at it. But of course, I think whichever comes first, that's fine. We don't want to see, you know, over policemen reducing their age. Realistically, you get to an age you can't do more than you think you can. Your body may be telling you can run, but trust me, you can't anymore at that age. Just retire. And one of the reasons police officers want to stay longer is obviously for financial reasons. The salary structure has to be looked into more. Again, we have to think about incentivizing retirement in the police force. If you have, you know, meritoriously served this country, and your retirement ought to be safe, you definitely ought to have some retirement home out there. Government have to look into their package, their severance package, to make sure everything is proper and dynamic. And these guys ought to be excited to go back. Thank you for serving the police. And, you know, the more we rebrand the police, you will make the ordinary people have love, affection for police. I don't think that much is there. You know, there's a mild disdain, to be honest, police, I bet, you know, because of the, let me say, the loud black sheeps in the police force. They are loud. I don't think they are the majority. I don't think the majority of the Nigerian police officers are bad. I just think the ones that are bad are somehow so loud and so obvious that it somehow overshadows
the good ones.
Absolutely. The hard-working men and women in the Nigerian police force, many of them having to stay in the cold nights, mounting difficult terrains, not knowing who is coming in the next car, not knowing, you know. So these are people, these are hard-working people, majority of them. There are majority of police people that would not take a bribe from criminals. I'll quote on that, because some of them may want to collect from you and say, okay, just help me. But, you know, there are people that look and say, this guy is, I can't. You get what I mean? So not all policemen sell their conscience, as it were. So many of them are decent, hardworking, God-fearing people. But the few bad eggs are there. And that's why our conversation ought to be looking, you know, throwing our beam light at the police force, seeing how we can exhaustively look at the act. This act, in my opinion, has to be thoroughly examined, and anything to fetter the president should be out. There ought to be at least more, I think there should be some democratic process there. Ordinary policemen can decide who will lead them. It can be in a rotational form, and, you know, one way or another, we need to add more dynamism that would really improve the lives of the policemen and also make them better. As it is now, it just seems like just do 4 years and go. It's also another argument. Why the 4 years? Are you saying somebody who can concertedly solve a major problem shouldn't stay longer than he can? You know,
especially if he has proven track record, he has delivered. Even within those 4 years, we have seen improved security, enhanced policing, and all of that.
Yeah, why would you want to play with the lives of the Nigerian people to limit it to 4 years?
But Ahmed, would you say that the Police Act is what has given the Nigerian police force the mindset to see themselves more tilted as a federal? Their services are more towards those in public office than the citizenry. Because I had a personal experience some years back on that fateful day here in the FCT. I think it was towards stadium, going towards Airport Road, and Mr. President was going somewhere, and everybody was stopped. And I think my car was the second car to the car in front of me, leading into the express, where the policeman and inspector of police stopped us. And I asked him, I said, look, whose interest are you really protecting? Is it the man in the long convoy, or we who voted him in and also pay tax to arm you and clothe you? And his response was, we are federal. And it was shocking, because coming from a police officer who naturally should have said, Oga, we are here for you. You understand? He said, we are federal. So that again brings home the conversation about community policing, state policing, which has continued to be a very controversial conversation.
And I think it's sad that it's still controversial in 2025. I think it's sad. It's really deep. It's disturbing that it's controversial. We need state police. I don't know how best we can say it. I don't know in any language we can make it. In short, in reality, state police, in some extent, they're already there. You may call them traffic management in some area. You know, you may call them vigilante. You make whatever nomenclature they go with. These are people who the state have employed to do some level of security or securing or, you know, law enforcing. These are state police, and we need to empower them. That has to be the conversation. We can't continue with this federal system. It's not workable. You know, it's not a wise man's plan or policy to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You know, and this is me putting it mildly. Properly saying, it's actually stupid to continue the same thing and expecting a different result. Nigeria won't work without many of the complaints we have, and if you check properly, if we have a proper police force, it won't be there. You go to the police station, the first thought is, let's detain this person, then they will threaten you with bail, then you will be, you know, there's so much stuff that ought to happen in the police. There are officers that ought to be dismissed for even suggesting to detain a Nigerian for 1 day, but now they'll tell you we can hold you for 24 hours. After 24 hours, okay, go. But they know that in that 24 hours you will likely bargain heaven and earth, because nobody wants to spend half a minute behind bars. They know that. And so because of the way things are, people just, they don't really have a care about the society that they are in. It's different if you are from this town. This is your community. You know this person. You grow up with these people. You can just tell. Chances that you go and lock Mr. Korero's daughter for this thing, you're like, well, I can find you. The idea of bail will not really flog you, because you know, I know you, I can find you. You will not say, go and call your brother Stephen to stand at shorty. In that case, do you understand? Where are you from? Which family? So it has brought it home. We can't have federal police. It won't work. It has not worked, and I don't think it will ever work. We need to have state police. That has to be the conversation now. And I think this is where the legal force should be focused. Getting the police working, not politicizing for years. No. That's just, let's focus on the deep issues. We need state policing effectively. Every state ought to have the police, and we have to talk about what the state police can do. They have to work. Obviously, they have to be federal crimes. They have to be state crimes, properly so called, and that's how we look into them. Of course, they can be concurrent. Armed robbery, for example, terrorism, for example, car robbery, for example. These are crimes that, well, you can do it here, go elsewhere. So there have to be that coordination. Then the police, the Nigerian police force as we have them now, will know. They will have this superiority jacket. No, I'm not just the police. I'm not a Jew. You wear your badge with pride, probably. The training will be more. And of course, access to Egunje, quote unquote, will be out of there. So I think it's distracting when they are the ones to be stopping on the road. Which road? Do you know the back alleys? Do you get? And you will be posted from here to Zamfara soon. So do you get what I mean? So you don't have a long stake in this place at the end of the day. Because even if you are not from Benue and you are posted to Benue, the thought that I may be in Benue, grow my children here for 35 years, will give you a sense of belonging. I grew up in a community. My mom was a lecturer, and so the place where we lectured, I think we're the only indigents when I was growing up. I say this boldly, Auchi Polytechnic. My mom was a lecturer there. There was a staff quarters. When I was growing up, we were the only people, and my mom was not from Auchi. We were the only Auchi people, because my dad, that stayed in the staff quarters. And every other person was, maybe from other areas of the states and the country, and some out with there. But these are people till date that have a strong loyalty and affinity for the town, and that's because many of them grew up there. Their parents grew up there, so that's their first experience. So it's different from a transient army child. Today you're in this barrack, tomorrow you're in that barrack, next tomorrow. So you don't build bonds and affinity. You don't feel like I owe this town anywhere. You don't hear the name of the town and something triggers. I have people that when the moment they mention Auchi, they start smiling, you know, because hey, you know, it brings some nostalgic, sweet feelings to them. I'm saying that the police don't have that kind of bond with their communities, and the only way we can do that is to have state police, or at least fixed police, whereby you are sent to this state. This is where you will be. This is where you will be. If you are in so department of the Nigerian police, you will be in the states, and this is where you know, as soon as you come out from the recruitment ground, this is where you will be. You spend 25 years there, you spend 35 years there, you will know this place, and this will be your town. So it's not about ethnicity to say you must be from this town. No, there are people from my town that are not from my town. You get what I mean? They are from, their fathers are there, their grandfathers are there, they love the town, but they don't know the in and out of the town. They don't know the back, they don't know where we walk past. You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah. So, and there may be somebody from another area that knows that town. So we need people who will be there, who will commit to be in this city. This is how we must see policing. Policing must be personal. It's not going to be this political just bring, no. It's not working, and Nigerian police needs to work.
Well, Ahmed, you've said so much, and I want to believe that those that matter, the decision makers, the policy makers are listening and are taking notes, because I mean, this is probably the best form of feedback they can get on this subject. The entirety of last week was all about the IGP, and you have made one salient point. It is time to take a critical look at that police act, especially in a situation where it contravenes the powers and the workings of the presidency, and the need to look beyond 4 years and thereabout, and age limits and retirement limits and all of that. We must be able to look at the issue holistically, and of course we cannot dispute the fact that the law is very important in being able to put structure and make systems work. Well, Ahmed, thank you so much for making up time to be on the show.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's the conversation this morning on today's edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political, and general interest show, Korero. Trust us, tomorrow promises to be another incisive edition as we keep our ears to the ground and our searchlight beamed on developments as they evolve. So, special thanks to you for allowing us be a part of your morning and your day, and trust us to be back same time, same frequency, same station, with another incisive edition of the show. I am Nkamian John the Beloved, also known as the Controversial, signing out.